Okay, and then it says your event is starting. And so we're good. And now go to Friday Night Live. So did I go to...
Where do I talk to? Or
At
talk
YouTube it says your event's starting.
Go away or just talk?
Yeah, just like that is fine. It's pretty good at picking up
now go
sound.
to Friday Night Live or wait.
I've got this masked off for
So you might want
safety.
to tune in and see if
These
you can see
three
anything.
sides, this fourth side, I don't tend to pull paint too far down, just probably ending roughly at that edge. But I will
I
wet
don't
it
see
all the
anything
way.
though. It just says please stand by 116 and there's not... How do you do that? Oh, here, I think it's going. Yeah, we're good. So, yeah, it's weird though. We only have 4 people right now on, so I don't know what the deal is with that. There's only 4 people. Yeah. So, yeah, cool. So it's a little out of... Yeah, I think it's just... It looks like it's a little... How's it looking on your computer? Is it looking at high def? It looks a little... Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Thanks so much, Greg. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. So we should be good. So it's just a matter of now, I just put, we're going, Jim Hahn's on, he's kind of saying stuff. So just kind of, we can start whenever you want to start here. We're good. Yeah, so just introduce yourself, and then basically as questions come in, it's going to start kind of slow, and then people kind of meander in, and
Okay.
I'll let you know.
All right, I'm Robert Watts, and this is obviously the Watts Atelier. This is our Friday Night Live typical demonstration of some kind of technique, some kind of subject in this particular case. I've got a pencil drawing, which was hand-drawn, not traced, of Jack Sparrow's father in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a nice, surly subject. And I'm going to take this from transparent to opaque, not all opaque, but a good share of it will be opaque by the time I get done painting. And it's an entirely different technique from the one that you typically see attached to gouache. So if we get lucky, it'll come out worth talking about. So we'll see what happens here, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them as I'm working along. First thing I'm going to do, this is on crescent watercolor board, and it's taped off.
I guess that's great. I don't know.
And I'm going to wet the entire board, the entire portion that we're going to put paint on, with clear water. And then we'll add
Recording on here too.
we'll add a few transparent washes in on top of this water. The idea of getting it all wet first is so that we don't end up with any hard settling edges when the preliminary washes are put in. And the approach that I use is generally to try to capture the general color of an area in the picture, particularly the fragile colors like the really warm yellows, oranges, colors that are very delicate and difficult to get any vibrancy out of when you go back in over the top. Once you start adding white to them, they become dull and cold and they don't work too well. So I'll put my little piece of reference here, and we'll start out with some yellow and orange. It's going to look really raucous, but don't want to get too excited. It's and these colors always kind of dull down as they dry out anyway. So This is kind of a white knuckles period in the whole thing when you're trying to get the general character of the color down.
It might have just been his latch that he forgot to, because he ejected the cart earlier and didn't close the latch. Maybe a brake one or something. We can try, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, would you like me to set a timer, like maybe 45 minutes or something, or just so you
That'd
can
be fine.
Yeah, take a break every once in a while.
Yeah.
Let me grab the timer.
Okay, let's see now here. Work my way around that. A few of these little drizzles before they get out of hand. Okay.
And you guys can feel free to ask questions too.
Yeah, by all
If you
means.
want to, start, because some people will be asking them from online. And you guys online too, if you want to ask questions, feel free. As usual, you guys are more than welcome to do that.
Okay, let's see if I can tilt this down a little bit more here. I screw up the camera for a moment, but I'll try to keep it relatively steady. This is where I'm going to start using
So Dad, I remember you doing a lot of these growing up, and is this more the Bernie Fuchs kind of little bit style? Or?
I mean, certainly the drawing was reminiscent of a little bit of Fuchs, but it's going to end up being painted probably more conventionally than, it's not going to be any pick out, if that's what you mean.
Now, we did have a question that came through, it's like Lori's story. Her name it says, "Hi Robert, I'm just wondering why you are using gouache and not say watercolor. It looks very transparent."
That's mostly because I'm cowardly about color. I always start out very carefully with backing into these things, and I will gradually get more opaque as time goes on. I do a lot of work in watercolor. I just find that there's a certain grace to and luminosity to transparent passages in work. It doesn't have to all be transparent, but so a few pieces, much like an oil painting where you have transparent turpentine stains that are left unmolested in the finished work as it moves along. And you get a really nice effect that way. some little surprises in it. So, plus it's a it's a medium I kind of enjoy. So the watercolor. So there's a little bit of that influence in it, but it'll get more opaque as time presses on here. I want to get the big areas of dark, start getting those worked in here.
That's just a typo.
What's that?
That just did a typo with Jordan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mr. Jardine?
Yeah. That's awesome.
I know, all the old guys show up on some, even Raphael. is
Yeah,
also
Raphael comes in.
awful.
Yeah, you'll probably hear from him sometime tonight, I'm sure.
Notice I'm using a #1 ball bat for this particular portion. I don't have a tendency to get really small and fine. I guess my description of Dancing with the Devil is probably nearer to the mark than I.
So Robert, what got you into visual development?
I started, I guess much of it started with architectural illustration, really, and I ended up having to fake so many things that I started to get pretty good at faking. And then I started teaching a composition class here in the school. And one thing led to another, and then I decided I had a crazy notion for a short period of time that I wanted to be in the gaming industry, which fortunately passed. And because it really is, it's known for its perspiration, and I really don't think it would have probably been quite as much fun as I had visualized initially. But I've done a few freelance things along those lines, and I really do enjoy that kind of work. And I'm going to be teaching a class here on environmental concepting at some point in the near future. So that one should be a good bit of fun. The thing that I find that's true in most of the classes that I teach is that the imagining index is not there. And I remember vividly when I was young and first in this thing, I couldn't do it either. It's one of those things which it's like a muscle that you've never used, and it just gets sore. It doesn't seem to produce any results, for a while. And so it's like when you teach the perspective class, everyone's got a razor sharp pencil and clearly focused vanishing points, and everything is just hard as nails. And what you really need to do, and this is where the concepting thing, to make a long-winded answer to a short question, is that the first thing you have to do is to start imagining. If you want to do anything in the art world at all, you've got to start visualizing things in your head before you start touching the paper. And in the particular case of perspective, you need to learn how to approximately draw to vanishing points. But you're still keeping yourself really soft and casual all the time that you're doing it. Because the minute you stiffen up, your work starts to really show it badly. And so I'm a firm believer in staying loose as long as you possibly can.
So that Jim Hahn says, hey Robert, I'm wondering, since you've been an illustrator for years, are there any traits or differences, skill level or otherwise, that you would say older illustrators have that the guys now don't?
Oh, that's really fishing in troubled waters.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for that, Jim, yeah. It's, I think that the old school, and I'm not saying this with any broad brush, because there are some incredibly talented people out there in concepting and gaming and the movie industry, and that's where most of the work is at this particular juncture. Some really, really good people who don't have to look backwards at the bygone era with any shame at all. But there are too many people, in my opinion, that attach massive amounts of detail and precision with successful artwork. And they certainly can be part of the same equation, but not necessarily. And so just having lots of heavy-duty information does not a work of art make. And the older guys, the ones that I admired at least, were masters at composition. And so that composition has become my, if I have a forte, that has become it. Because I don't even pretend to paint as well as a lot of people. I do a creditable job, but not of monumental quality. And a lot of people paint better than I do. So I have just decided that the area that I wanted to focus on instruction-wise was the preliminary stages of putting thoughts together in your mind and getting it down on paper, which seems to be, from all my experience thus far, the area in which things go quite badly for the vast majority of the people that I teach. They can't quite get it down. It's like that first step to violate that precious white paper that you've got in front of you. That's why most of my concepting stuff that I do, most of the work that I do is done on the inexpensive blue-lined paper that you would take to a college course. And not only it's handy because it's got some great little perfectly ruled lines on it that you can judge horizontals and verticals to, but it's already crappy. It already looks really terrible. And so you can't really do anything to harm it too badly. And if you wad one up and throw it away, or wad 500 up and throw them away, it's not a great financial or emotional crisis. It works really good. And so you get these. I usually sit out on my patio, and that's my favorite place for thinking of things. And I work out there on the blue-lined paper. And then once I have good ideas, I put tracing paper over it and clean those ideas up.
Okay, so let's see here. We've got, this is one that came in a while ago, but I'll just address it really quickly. This one guy said, I'm thinking about signing up for online classes for drawing and pen painting. I'm wondering how good the programs are for beginners, or if this is a good place to start. Yeah, the Friday Night Lives are more inspirational, so they're not going to cover such basic concepts, but online there's a whole series of fundamental courses that deal with basic freehand perspective, geometric shapes, positive negative shapes, mannequinizing, all the stuff going from start all the way through to the most advanced level stuff. So yeah, we're basically making a full curriculum. So on there you'll find those fundamentals. So it is a good place to start. You can always try it for a month and see if it's something you like, and then if it's not, you can always bail out if you need to or want to. So there's no long-term obligation, so it would be good for you. Another guy down here says, hi Robert, I was wondering if you could share with us the artists that you admire or that influenced you in some way. That's Jeff asking this question.
Jeff, I tell you, the one that probably got most of my attention at the time that it got my attention was Norman Rockwell. And at one time, the mere mention of the name Norman Rockwell would immediately get you thrown out onto the sidewalk. And a few of us were not going to have anything to do with that. and decided that we liked him anyway. And particularly his late 30s, late 1930s stuff was just amazingly revolutionary. I mean, just incredible. And this guy had the rare gift of being able to paint extremely well, compose, and tell stories at the same time. So this is something that that became a requirement, kind of, that you had to learn how to tell stories. And even the simplest piece of work tells a story. So it doesn't mean that you have to be writing for novels or short stories for it to have bearing. And so he was a big influence. Mead Schaefer was another. Obviously N.C. Wyeth. There were a lot of contemporary ones too. I mean, and you have to understand that I come from the late Pliocene, so so many of the people that I liked were the people that were really big up. Bob Peak, Bernie Fuchs. Bernie Fuchs was no slouch. He was really exceptional, and Bob Peak was excellent as well. They were the contemporary ones, and then there were the traditional ones, like I just mentioned, with Schaefer, Wyeth, and Rockwell. And those are probably the biggies then. I mean, there are a ton of current contemporary people that I admire a lot. I have been, I don't really want to start mentioning a bunch of contemporary people that are peers of all of us, because then you're bound to leave someone out, and then someone gets their feelings hurt. And but if you go back, 15 or 20 years, you're pretty safe in talking about these other people. But those are the principal ones that influenced me. I also along the way, I got into architectural illustration, which sounds dreadfully boring, but it actually, if it's done correctly, it's pretty terrific. And there was a fellow that drew almost exclusively in charcoal in the 30s, 20s and 30s. His name is Hugh Ferris. And the stuff is just absolutely mind-boggling to look at. I mean, it was so far ahead of its time that it was incredible. But I mean, I could probably list 75 people without any difficulty at all that have been huge influences, and new guys keep popping along all the time. I mean, practically every time I enjoy just going through the concept art stuff. There's always some new person from France or that I've never heard of, and say, wow, where have I been? How did I not know about this person? It's so much fun. I think that's for all of us that are in this business. That's one of the giant thrills of life, is finding somebody's new work who you absolutely love. I mean, I don't think when it comes to really good stuff, none of us are selfish or stingy. We love to see the new stuff, and only thing you say, dang, I wish I'd done that myself. But that's about it. That's the extent of the sour grapes on it.
Okay, so there's some questions rolling in. I'm going to answer a few of them, and then I'll go back. They're all over the place. So, is there an atelier if there's an atelier near me, would you say it is better to go to that atelier, or is your online program equally as beneficial? It really depends on what the program is and who's running it and what kind of focus. I think this is Abigail that I'm talking to. How well it's put together. I mean, just like anything, there's a lot of ateliers popping up nowadays, and some are good and some, they vary greatly depending on who's running them and what kind of background they have as far as their curriculum and who's putting it together. So again, you just have to do your due diligence and do some reconnaissance, and maybe trying to find some people that went there or go there and visit in person. Something like that would be a good way to go. I think online, I know our program's really good online, but again, it will be good for some people and maybe not so good for others. It really depends on your discipline and what kind of focus you have. So all those things would have to be factored in. And like I said, maybe you could do both and complement each other depending on, again, what your financial situation is. But it really depends on a lot of factors that aren't very easy for me to answer for you. You'd have to, depending on what your background is and what you want to do, I
think you can probably count on wasting some time in your life, in short short trips up back alleys that turned out not to be exactly what you were after, and just prepare yourself for that. And you know, the best thing that it's like when you go to some place like Art Center, you know, you literally your rich aunt has to leave her entire fortune to go, and so you know, you try something less expensive to start out with. It's but this school is certainly good. I mean, if there's anything wrong with this, it is not for want of us trying really hard. I mean, it's really a dedicated group, and I know my wife gets on my case quite a bit about the fact that I'm spending too much time on the classes. And you know, I mean, you don't get rich teaching classes. So, but when I went to Art Center, and I've told this story to all the people in all of my classes, it was a bit disappointing. I mean, not a bit disappointing. It was a hell of a lot of disappointment. I saw 2 demos the whole time I was there, and it cost a lot of money. Not like it does now, but it cost a lot of money nonetheless. And so to this very day, I mean, I can't live with myself if the class isn't just chock full of all the best information I'm able to put together on the topic to try to make it. And because I'm only reasonably gifted, I'm always looking for easy solutions. I've always had to kind of cover my tracks a little bit with technique or approach or design or something else to hold down the day for me, because I couldn't quite paint as well as some of the people around me. And so I've always been very empathetic towards the people that are not coming in with a trailer load of natural ability. And I don't really believe in the natural talent thing anyway. The only natural talent that you really have or do not have is your persistence and the point at which you will give up on this rather than press on, even though you've had 9.5 million successive failures under your belt. I mean, that's where the talent is. The talent is, I have to do this. I'm going to stay here till I get it. That's all. But I mean, I get up every day, and I mean, drawing is my life. It really is. I have to do it. Just have to do it every day. And I think if you don't feel quite that way, you know, it's going to be more difficult for you, because this is not going to be an easy job. Even if you're talented, it isn't going to be easy. And like I say, the talent is mostly, in my experience, is your ability to see well. That's where the talent comes in. You can teach your hands to do anything, but the seeing, that's a different situation altogether. Some people just look at this stuff for 1,000 years and never see it. Absolutely never see it.
So that, Jim said, would you say with how detail-oriented so many artists are now, which I agree with, is strictly due to their style or due to what their art directors are requesting from them?
Oh, it probably, it's got, I mean, art directors, God love them. They always want whatever is most difficult for you to do. But you know, I mean, it's like when you take your work to a gallery, or you just hang around in a gallery and listen to your average people that have a wad of cash come in and they're going to buy a paint, and their only metric that they have, the vast majority now, there are a few really sharp people out there, the vast majority, how much, oh, look at the detail. Oh, look at the detail. That is the only metric they have to measure anything with. It's not like, oh, look at the design. Oh, look at the page breakup, the space, the way the center of interest is clear off in the lower right-hand corner. That none of that registers for the vast majority of people. So that's the seeing aspect, and I know in my composition and staging class. In fact, I've got it on my iPad if anybody wants to look through a series of the drawings that are used in that. And all the drawings were done by me, and they were done quick. But a whole lot of things that I had never read about in any books on composition before. So I think we really have broken into some new territory here with it, and trying to organize it so that the average person can come to grips with it. Because you need procedures to do good work. You can't just stick a piece of white paper in front of somebody and say, okay, now express yourself. You know, I mean, that just doesn't get it. So you have to have some kind of a system for, well, what do I want to do? What am I going to do? Where do I start doing that? What is the second thing that I do? You know, you need that kind of procedural approach in your work. And it doesn't stop the creativity, God knows. I mean, it allows it to happen. I'm trying to come up with some kind of a texture, not to change the subject here, for these corn rolls that this guy has, these dreads that this guy has got strapped onto his head. And I'm trying to do it without doing it. You know, I don't want to get in here and become a tattoo artist, doing all the little pieces of hair and everything. I want to get some effect of the movement in there. And I want all these colors to keep consistently changing as we drift through some of these different passages here. So this will be gouache, probably like you're not accustomed to seeing. I hope it will be anyway. Let's see, that's where that's going to go right around in there. Okay. I'm not going to try to render all of this furniture detail. I just want to pick up a few tantalizing pieces, and then we'll let it go at that. I use a ruler a lot in all of my painting, whether it's oil or watercolor or anything. It's my version of a maul stick is really all it is. But it allows you to reach into difficult areas where you try to do a straight line with your hand. No, don't want to do that. Yeah, you need a little bit of support, so because you got to do this stuff for hours on end. You got to be able to relax, and this allows you to do that. So I'm mixing all these umbers and raw siennas and raw umbers and all this stuff with just this limited palette, which is consisting of principally the colors I'm using mostly right now: ultramarine blue, phthalo green, alizarin crimson, cadmium orange, a cadmium red medium to light, and a yellow, cadmium yellow light. So that's basically, you can do all of these colors by just mixing different amounts of the different colors, and you can get all of the earth colors, and then all your painting is completely made up of the same colors, so it'll have a tendency to hang together for you, as opposed to if you say, oh, I think this hat looks kind of yellow ochre to me, so you drag out the yellow ochre for the hat, so now the hat looks like something that arrived from another planet. It doesn't have doesn't share anything with the rest of the painting. So I gradually, you'll see that I gradually work up my colors using transparent passages, and eventually then I'll get in with some real pure opaques, the way that everyone's, just before everybody completely loses their bearings, I'll do it more or less the way you expect. But it's just a way that I like to work, and you'll notice that this it's much like the pencil work that I do in some of the sketching classes. I'm using the brush in very unconventional ways, using the side of the brush, with everybody's just getting in and just doing little straight lines with the end, and that's fine for certain things, but you also have to be able to move quickly to blend things together so that they don't feel piecey.
So Jeff asked, what about Robert McGinnis? What are your opinions of his work?
Really, I mean, he could handle gouache like $1 million. and he could draw great girls, and a little skinny for my taste, but but really good. I mean, he's really good at it. I mean, the guy was a marvel. I think probably I started out in like I mentioned briefly in aerospace at the beginning, right fresh out of Art Center. That was my first job. Myself, my pregnant wife, and not much else. And going into aerospace, and they said everything's got to be detailed, and we're willing to pay you no money to do that. And so that was the beginning, and I got my belly full of detail. And plus, I have done architectural illustration over the years, and while I've found a way to introduce some style into my work so that it isn't the crippled child that it tends to become, I've seen enough detail to last me a lifetime. And you just the mere looking at it just makes me cringe. You know, I respect it, I admire it, don't want to do it. You know, that's basically my position on that little guy. But McGinnis is really good. I mean, I can certainly make windy answers for short questions, but no, he's phenomenally good. Really good. Was really good, I guess. Is he still alive? He's not alive anymore.
I think he might have passed.
I think he did. Okay, that's now let's see. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with some of these other areas. I don't want to focus on any of this stuff too bloody much here. So
Pavel asked if he could see the reference you're working from, Pavel. So Pavel, yeah.
there it is, folks. Yeah, it's an easily obtainable piece of reference. Just a really nice pose. I play some guitar, so I liked the guitar being in the subject here. You notice that little spoke-wheeled piece of adornment up there is going to get a. Just want me to get some water and a little bit of fluid stuff into that, and then we'll. The thing you have to be careful with when you're doing a painting like this is that everything wants to try to upstage everything else. And you must, in it doesn't matter what you're going to do with your instruction that you're getting here, whether you're going to do oil painting or draw the figure, draw dogs, whatever it ends up being your thing. You always have to say, what is the center of interest? Where is the center of interest? And you have to control the eye so it doesn't look at anything for very long besides what you want them to look at. And that's your primary mission when you start putting a picture together, is what is the center of interest? Where is it located? And how can I preserve it? And it's just that easy. And just that difficult. There's always a puppy running on stage. I mean, so you have a tendency to have things pour out of the corners, add a piece over there and a piece over here. There's nothing linking them together. That was another concept that became apparent to me in the course of teaching the composition, was linking objects together. Sometimes that's done with overlap, sometimes it's done with devices. You know, it could be anything from a trickle of running water from one other. It could be a rope if there were people climbing a mountain. It can be something very direct or something very implied. Okay, here, but there's and the composition class is available online. I don't want to sound like we're hawking wares here, but really it's got a lot. I poured heart and soul into that. It's got a lot of invaluable stuff. Some of it you will have heard before. A lot of it you will have never heard before. And all of it needs to be heard, a lot. Because the thing is, even if you can't draw well yet, if your composition is good, people are going to be struck by your work. And once you get to be able to draw better, combined with some good composition, you're going to be unstoppable. You know, so the composition is a very important thing to get nailed. I would say right after basic drawing skills, it's not. I mean, that obviously you have to be able to hold a pencil in your hand, you know, and you've got to be able to make a mark where you want to make it. But the first thing you need is to be able to organize spaces and get your composition down so that it's a striking thing to look at.
Here's a cool one. So Jeff Paxson says, yeah, he is still alive. I have corresponded with him a bit, and he
that's
sent
good
me
to
a
hear.
couple of original sketches. He's 89 or 90, diminished hand and eye, but a monumental gentleman. Class act all the way.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, his stuff's awesome.
No, he was extremely good, and he had all of those skills. There was another guy, a wildlife artist, Bob Kuhn, who was absolutely. I mean, he's probably one of two people who worked in acrylic whose work I could stand, and it was. I mean, it was way over the top, above anything you could hope to compete with. I mean, the guy was really an amazing artist. Bob Kuhn, really good. He's gone now, but boy, the best wildlife artist that ever happened. But he really had the. He appealed to my sensitivities about looseness with the illusion of tightness. And I always find that that's really rewarding, is the illusion of tightness. That's the. Put some.
Not to throw you off, Dad, but when you go to the left, your head, I mean, if you go way to the left, when you go over to this corner,
Oh,
up here, you'll catch the camera on your head.
Well.
It's not a big deal. It's just to give you a heads up. Not that it.
no, they wanted to look at gray hair anyway. I'll turn the painting sideways.
Yeah, just
get
give it
get
a-
at that then. I'm just putting a few little doodads along the edge here, just to.
So
Yeah.
Jim Hahn says, Jeff says you hate airbrushes, but I find rendering soft forms such as females difficult in gouache. So what is your secret?
Watercolor. It really, I mean, there were some people that during the 50s, if I had the common sense, I would have brought them. But there were some guys, there were guys, a gas station attendant with a pump in his hand, painted like $1 million. You know, this big hand with the pump coming out, you know, old billboard signs that they used to have. Oh, it's just amazing. I mean, just really some really good gouache people around at that point. It's much of it comes down to dry brushing. With some of the airplane stuff, like the Focke-Wulfs that are back there in the night sky, you can see that you can do a lot of it with dry brush. And I still do that kind of painting from time to time, but I try not to do too much of it. But that's the way you would probably best accomplish the female form would be a very light touch with a kind of a dry brush. And so that's one of the things in gouache. You can either work as tiles or you can work with a soft dry brush stroke over the top. So you kind of keep going like it's a real soft kind of, where you just feather over the top of something and you're just catching it with the end of the brush. Let's see here, what do we got? I got to get a few of these little bright hot spots in here.
Right now we got about 7 minutes left before we take a little break.
Okay.
And it's up to you. I mean, you can we'll just break for like maybe a couple minutes.
Well, it's
up to you.
probably more useful for you guys. See, I'm fully engaged here with what I'm doing. So for me, it's not as stressful as it is for you sitting there with your backside turning into a broom, you know.
maybe what we'll do at break is we'll show some of the stuff you brought in, some of the.
That'd be fine, sure.
Yeah, we'll show some of the gouache comps and I'll put them up and you can
Yeah.
zoom in on them. So yeah, you guys, at break time coming up in about 8 minutes, those of you who are watching, my dad brought in some of his older tech illustrations.
If I'd known you were gonna do that, I would have brought about 75 of them.
Yeah, and I'll just,
I've got
I mean, we
a ton
can
of them.
rifle through them, and we'll do stuff like this in the future, most likely, so, we'll be covering all kinds of stuff, but I'll show you some of those at break time here in about 5 minutes or so.
I'm doing a little bit of really, really strong opaque here, because when I start, I'm going to push these darks a little bit darker, and I want to get some of my lighter values in place so I can get some better feeling for where top and bottom on this is.
Hey Robert, I noticed you're using the bleed-proof white
Yeah.
for your white as opposed to, I guess, a normal gouache out of the tube. Is there any reason for that?
It's a little bit more opaque, and I like it because it's got a little bit more body to it. I have Winsor Newton's white, and it's a superior white for tinting a color. In other words, making a color just a little bit lighter. But it doesn't. It's fairly fluid, so it doesn't have a lot of. What am I looking for? It doesn't grab the paper very well. It kind of floats around on it, and if you're having trouble controlling your brush, it can. And who doesn't? It turns out to be a little easier to use. Sooner or later, I'll get that color right. I don't want that too orange down there. Over here. With these things, you never know how quickly or how slowly they're going to go either. It's maddening to do demos. It really is, because you're trying to trying to get it to come through like a microwave dinner, that sort of takes precisely the right amount of time to accomplish what you were after.
Robert?
Yep.
With gouache being such an obscure medium nowadays and its relative similarities to digital, what would you say are the biggest things that aspiring digital artists could take away from working and training in gouache?
I would say probably the most significant thing is less reliance upon the undo, Control Z. In other words, that breeds, we all use it, but it breeds a degree of sloppiness, It's kind of like saying, well, if I hurt their feelings, I'll just go talk to somebody else. I think you learn how to think in terms of big shapes, and much of gouache. It's a little. I mean, I've done some decent stuff in it, but it's with relatively little difficulty. But it's strange to see the way people are supposed to work in digital, which is they start out with a vague, misty blob of stuff and just keep overlaying misty blobs, and things start to emerge out of all of this. And it's hard for me to get past the old linear concept of figuring out where everything is going early on in the game, and then not necessarily filling in the spaces, but to some degree, yeah. And that's so I don't know. I think probably the most significant thing that you'll get out of gouache as a digital painter is something you can actually sell. That's probably the main reason, and I think that there's a mystique about real stuff, you know, because digital is just kind of a strange world, and I really like it. Don't take me wrong at all. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy looking at it. I think it's great, but you can't really sell it. And if you're looking to provide provisions for somebody, you got to find a way to make it pay. Yeah, okay. So, tease around here and see what kind of color we need for that. That looks fairly close.
Question?
It's a delicate one.
Samir says, what is the biggest mistake you see in beginning artists?
No center of interest. You know, that doesn't mean that there's nothing interesting in the picture. That means that there is no, you know, say like, you know, we have a picture here and the subcaption is, Ted said, get off the motorcycle. You know, I mean, there is no center of interest in the thing. You know, you need something going on in the picture that, you know, that, what is this about? It can't just be lovely stuff just kind of sprinkled around the page in hopes that somebody will get some meaning out of it. So it's learning how to tell stories and maintaining control over the center of interest. That's the biggest problem. And then, of course, composition is part and parcel of that whole endeavor. So, you know, it sounds like I'm a one-trick pony. It's composition and that's all. But you can't go anywhere without it. I mean, you're going to have junk on your hands without good composition. So you got to get hot on it, and that's usually where most everyone falls very sadly short. I mean, you obviously have little drawing problems. You have all the usual stuff that everybody notices, but more likely than not, one of the guys that was in my last class, a Canadian guy, sent me an image of something he'd been working on.
So that's 45 dead. So you can finish that up, obviously.
And I haven't had a chance. I've been so bombed with stuff to do, but I'm going to try to figure out what's wrong with the composition or what he did wrong, because everybody he's talked to has no answers for it. So naturally he dumped it in my lap. so I'll figure it out though. And I don't mind doing that because it's you know, I mean, you got to get help. I mean, and you look at it and you say, gee, it's really not that bad. Gee, it's really not working. And you know, that's kind of your sequence of thoughts on the subject when you look at it. You know, there's.
Do you want to take a little break? Are you okay, or?
Me?
Yeah, the timer just went off. No.
Oh, I'm fine, but everybody else might want to get up and move around for a minute. I don't want to take time off and not get this thing done. That's.
So you just want to go through?
Oh, I'll just keep working away here. And,
Okay, so yeah, everybody, he's going to keep working, so if you want to just stay tuned, that's fine. We're going to, well, it doesn't matter here. Some people are going to take breaks, but it's all good. So yeah, you guys can do some cupcakes and stuff over there too. And drinks and stuff if you guys want to have some of that.
Are you gonna just keep painting, Robert?
Oh yeah.
Happy birthday, by the way.
That's just what the thanks.
Is it your birthday? Happy birthday.
Yeah. It's we try to keep it happy, that's for sure. This one's a pretty good one. It's a busy one and a scary one, but it's past that, not too bad. Got to be very careful that it don't get too dark down here in the corner.
What's wrong with that one?
I want to get a. Let's see anything even see any of that there, so I'll just fake it. I want to keep this fairly soft and delicate down in here so it doesn't start stealing our thunder. One of the things you can do with a brush is to beat it so that it's kind of flat like that, and then you can. These look like they're going to be very bold, but they'll dry essentially the same color as what's happening behind it, but a little bit darker.
The thing with wash, you get depending on how you want to use it. You can use it like a watercolor, and it's fine. It was almost like water, just not
Here, look at this. What you really look for when you're doing a painting is you're looking for areas that are all similar in color, and to block in these big shapes where they occur. So you don't start out at the upper left-hand corner and paint towards the lower right. You just try to get a big movement of a tone or color happening across everywhere where it's a factor. Strings, I think probably the best way to deal with those strings is to paint around them. I don't really want them to stand out, but I don't want it to look like a bowl of lettuce either. So.
What do you look about? We don't have a lot of questions up around here. I have about 100 of them that's got in my gallery in the back in the studio there from past weeks. Just like the long years of drawings and stuff. And I have all the teachers' original first wash paintings, black and white. We start with black and white, then we go to orange and full color, just like we do in oil. And it's the original used in our charcoal.
You've done this painting before?
No, never. Never seen it before Tuesday. Yeah, the guitar isn't really, it's not all that hard, but the idea of getting that glow of the transparent color in there for that's a very significant element, and to try to find a way to capture that early on is important. So you don't have to go back and paint that guitar, in other words. Now I can essentially forget about it.
Where did you get this image?
Right off the internet, just digging around in Pirates of the Caribbean, and there it was. Okay, this is there's some brighter red-orange on that, but I'm going to just paint around this.
So you just looked at this and realized you didn't want to paint that guitar, you'd be better off.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of learn this stuff after a while. If you get bitten by snakes so many times, you start to learn how to deal with snakes. And
I'm always seeing on whenever I can. Yeah, he's doing all the time online. So what I do is usually I have him do the class first, kind of work it out for school. And then kind of up the out so it's fresh and it doesn't always
But the thing that's nice about gouache is that you can take these colors and you can soften and blend them back together to a certain extent later on.
So yeah, when people use
This watercolor sort of technique. Now, once you get an area zeroed in other words, you figure out what with a thin tint what it looks like. It's no problem to mix the same color opaquely and paint it in, should you choose to do that. But you don't have to. That's the one thing that's neat about painting is that as long as it looks good, nobody cares. It's just make it look good, Bob. That's all. So the idea is to try to capture the effect of an area without turning it into a layer. So you're looking for boundary edges of where colors kind of change and what their general character is. And by putting a thin wash of that general color underneath it, like you put this over white, it's a different problem. It becomes really difficult to, oh, I'm pulling that off right. So if you get that base tone of warm underneath there, and then you can go darker and lighter from it without too much activity, more intense, less intense. It works really good for me anyway, and I highly recommend it as a way to simplify. I'm always looking for, it's almost like anybody's familiar with Photoshop and the posterizing tool in filters. It's basically, that's kind of what you do in gouache. You're basically posterizing. Taking a complicated area, and you can always go back and blend the edges together and do all that good stuff later, should you choose to do it. But you really don't need to all that much. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from painting tightly, by all means. Especially if you really enjoy it. And that's the key in this thing, is you got to find a way to do this stuff that is enjoyable for you. Okay. Do something cool.
Yeah, you will. Now, on the actual online, you got like, I'll show you guys this. You have a camera over the heads, and you have a camera on your palette, and that comes up the corner of the left. So this way, and you have the reference on the left.
This is just done using the edge of the brush. It works remarkably good.
This we just
Let's see.
yeah, which different guys who really work. And it's just kind of like easier for people know, so they can say, oh yeah, I know that. But yeah, it's nowhere near as quality. But maybe less.
A little less on this. You notice that you can come back over the top of everybody with a final kind of a thin coat over the top. It ties everything all together. But there are certain little strokes that you have to learn how to do with your hand, which is, it's basically these little calligraphy kind of strokes that where you, things like that.
Come back from break, you'll probably want to take a break.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm fine. I'm incredibly resilient. So. All right. Or I wouldn't be here tonight.
Yeah, it's just a fiasco. Foreign kid in prison.
Simple little things like just blotting with your finger make an enormous difference. Okay, let's see now here. See if I can get some. Let's get some. Water in here. Okay. Let's see what's going on there. Sometimes I like these, some of these brushes. They're almost ball bats, but they work pretty cool. They got a kind of a life of their own.
Synthetic then? Or?
Yeah, they're all white sables originally.
Jim Hunt said no breaks for Robert, he's in the zone. Jordan says happy birthday.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah?
I've got his things on my wall waiting for inspiration to try to figure out how to fix it.
Is that what Jordan that was trying to get you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of birthday wishes.
Yeah, I have not forgotten him. So I've got jobs are just landing on me like snow, so I'm having a hard time coping.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it is. The thing is, most of my architectural work was really, really big until the early 2006. And then all of a sudden the computer moved in, and I'd been using the computer to do some of the heavy lifting myself. So it came as no surprise to me, but the fact that it almost completely wiped out my business was not fun to look at all. And now it's changed, it's gone back the other way. Well, so the computer stuff now, everybody can do it. You can practically get it in a box of cereal now. And I mean, they can go to China and get a rendering done for $350 in 2 days. And in what used to be a $3,000 to $4,000 market. So but the problem is that the really an interesting thing was that, I mean, I started doing soft watercolors and things 10 years ago. as opposed to the really tight kind of architectural stuff. And it had a good audience and everything. And then it kind of faded away for the computer. Everybody fell in love with that for a while. And then all of a sudden, a really weird thing happened is that women started to become really important in community groups, neighborhood groups, and they had to get projects approved before they could get them built. And the computer renderings just weren't flying with the women. For some reason, it just wasn't warm and cozy enough. They looked like they're made out of plastic. And they're really nice. They work great for a 40-story building, but they don't do very good when you're trying to show the rose garden in the backyard. They just, everything looks like it's made out of vinyl plants. But anyways, now it's all coming back. So, and now there's nobody left alive that does it except me. Everybody else has moved on. They'll be moving back, I predict. I think that's going to happen.
Jim says, a couple of big things that came through. I think, well, there's one guy, Jeff, that's been asking a lot of questions, good questions. But I mean, we kind of already answered this, I think, but it says, what is your feeling about these things going digital? To me, it seems purposeless outside of putting food on the table, as when you meet your maker, you have nothing physical that you have left behind. I don't know, that's a little extreme, but I think you know.
Well, the message is right and clear, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that part's true. But the part that is that you don't talk about is that all the people that buy this stuff, Disney, DreamWorks, whatever it is, they need stuff to happen faster than they can catch their breath. And digital is the only way to make that happen. You know, you can't send it back to the guy's studio for 5 days for while he repaints the whole thing. They just patch, snip, Photoshop, tuck it all back together, and call it done. And they're in the business of making money. That's what most of the stuff is about. Now, if you're going to start talking about art, that's a different topic. But business art is a whole different deal. It's,
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I think I've been
pretty
noticing.
unholy.
There's, I mean, again, you know, we've taken a look at so many great digital painters, guys
Oh, yeah.
like Craig Mullins and you know,
Oh,
Jamie
yeah.
Jones and those guys, but I mean, they're almost in a class of their own, where they're like doing it obviously for different reasons, and the speed factor is necessity now. But so I kind of see both ways. I mean, I think.
Oh yeah, no, there is no either or. You know, it's both. You know, there's going to be places for both of the things, and most of it's going to be digital. Very frankly, I mean, it really is. I mean, just pure economics are going to say it's going to go digital for most of the time. But the thing I'm finding with the architectural stuff in particular is that there's a certain snob appeal now to a watercolor as opposed to a digital painting, because there's like 8 guys in the country that can still do it. You know, and so they and there's no brand recognition to the digital. I mean, your digital stuff looks the same as IBM's digital stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it all has the same flavor and the same taste and texture to it, and you know.
Okay, so
See, instead of painting all that complicated stuff, we just paint a few little crisscrosses on it to give the illusion of that kind of stuff.
So Jim says, do you feel illustration is really a job that a person can fall into at any point in their life, given they have the proper skill level, and can hit their deadlines?
Except for the fact that it takes you a while for everybody to realize that you're even alive. That takes 5-10 years to get a network put together where somebody who knows your name and where you live and how to call you is needing work at any given point in time. That's the toughest part, is to get your client base built up, and that takes a fair amount of time. So, I mean, if you plan on doing this, you want to get rocking and rolling on it real quick, because everything is always more difficult than you thought. But I mean, assuming that your skill level is extremely high, you're going to have less trouble than the rest of us. That's for sure. Okay, so this is initially a kind of a watercolory resolution of the. But I am working with gouache, so it never totally becomes watercolor. it always stays kind of funky and opaque. I'll come back and do the lace and stuff in lighter values later, but what you need to do is you need to get the muscles in a painting put together first. You get the big passages of what's red, what's yellow, what's dark, you know, you try to keep moving around, keep the whole thing kind of covered so that you don't wake up and say, oh, heck, I forgot to paint the sky. You know, it's I was, to change the subject slightly, I was an artist fellow of this American Society of Aviation Artists for a number of years. And I did some workshops there, and in fact, there was a pervasive thing, and this is probably indicative of a whole lot of areas, but these guys all love painting airplanes. And they're not just guys, there's a lot of girls in there, which is really surprising. You wouldn't think girls would be that interested in airplanes, but they seem to be. And so we had a lot of them, but everyone to the person would paint this just incredibly rivet-counting airplane, and then say, oh, hell, I need a sky. You know, and you really, I mean, like about 5 minutes into planning the painting, you should be figuring out, where does this thing fit in the sky? What's the sky doing all this time? And so, you know, that kind of lack of planning and stuff is the stinker that kind of sneaks up on you in this business. And that's why you really need to get the fundamental stuff under your belt before you start moving forward with the details. And, okay, let's see. Get some light on this hand over here as well. Nothing would read as well as white paper with a little thin wash of a warm cream over it would be just great, but I can't get there now. And I'm going to have the same problem with the candles. Trying to get that diffused glow from the candle which would be much easier done. If I was doing this at home, I would plan this thing out, and I would be actually thinking this thing out with little concern as to whether it would be done by 10 o'clock or not. That gets in your way. We do the best we can.
Yeah, this guy Daniel. Daniel. As far as a brand of gouache that you, he's asking me if I recommend a gouache brand that's not too expensive. They're all kind of comparable. I mean, I don't know of a cheap gouache that's any good. Some people in my gouache class last term brought in some really wonky brands, man, and they were bad. I mean, they didn't blend well, they didn't go down well. I wouldn't try to save much money. You might save $1 or $2 a tube, and it's going to just make your life really difficult with it. So I would stick with, Winsor Newton, Graham, Holbein. I think Sennelier makes a good one. Just stay with a good brand and don't try to skimp too much because, you're just going to regret it. And again, I think, materials are really important. You don't want to blame them, but they can cause you a lot of grief if you use inferior ones. So just usually get what you pay for with a lot of your materials. So just be careful. The thing I've been having more of a trouble with is finding a good board because Crescent is on my list for. They really suck right now. So
they are not doing well.
Yeah, they just have really dropped the ball in their quality of their boards. They're peeling. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So
this is Crescent.
That's yes. And I think you've been using an illustration board like
sometimes Arches.
No,
the new one, Aqua board.
Yeah, Aqua boards. A couple guys I know. This one guy Jeff, great gouache painter from our school, uses Aqua board, and it's pretty good. So I'm going to start trying some of that stuff too, because I'm just so disappointed with the illustration board right now. So hopefully that helped a little bit. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent there, but that's kind of how I feel about it. So Tom Babby asks, hey all, Bob, out of your expansive career as an artist, what has been your most favorite individual professional job?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a difficult one to answer. I did 4 calendars for American Airlines that was a lot of fun and paid really good, which made it even more fun. It was, no, it was great stuff. I do every airplane that they flew over the life of the company. That was something like 65 different airplanes, something like that. And they all had to be hauling cargo, or unloading cargo, or loading cargo, or just fly. A few of them just fly. But it was really fun, and I learned so much about putting pictures together doing that. And there's a couple other good projects I've had. Well, some for the zoo. I do all of their concept work, and they're really good. That's where I learned how to invent figures out of necessity. Because you spend your entire life looking for reference for a job. But I would say the American Airlines is probably my favorite job as jobs go. Now, just doing paintings, I've done a lot of fun paintings on my own that were more fun than that. But
Hey Robert,
yes,
sorry to interrupt. Could you move your head a little bit to the right?
yeah,
Covering a little bit. Thanks.
I can actually move this. I'm sorry to cover that up. It's one of the pitfalls of being the person that's trying to put the paint on. I've got paint on my hand there. So just don't panic, just cover it up. Now, what I'm doing with the lace here is that I have this creamy color underneath, and then I'll pick up the brighter colors of the lace over the top with a little kind of a squiggly stroke. That's very poor explanation of it, but outside of just watching me do it, there's not much I can do to explain it, but it's a little swirly stroke that where you're just kind of like you're doing little meandering. It takes a while to get reasonably good at this. I refer to officially as Greeking, which is you're really not painting something, but you're painting something that people think looks like something. Let's see. It's kind of, and that's one of the things that in my classes I've been talking a lot about. The importance for people is to learn how to randomize, to do random strokes within an area. And it can be, you're going to use it for trees, you use it for everything you can think of. And it's really that learning to randomize things takes your picture out of that stiff as a board category. And not only that, it makes prettier trees and all kinds of other good things in the process. A few strokes in here. This is just kind of a light grade orange.
So I'm going to answer a question, Dad.
Yeah.
Hey, Raphael, how you doing, man? It's good to hear from you. I'm glad you're checking in. Hope you're doing well down there in Brazil. He asked, do you recommend you paint than oils to learn painting in tiles? And I would say most definitely. When I was in school, Fred Fixler was one of the best wash painters I've seen. I mean, he's phenomenal.
I would recommend that.
And yeah, and he basically used it as a bridge medium between drawing and oil. And the reason being is that you could learn a lot of discipline about, well, it's a very disciplined medium when used properly or used in certain manners. And the tiling was a way of turning form with shape and temperature rather than relying on blending, which is often overabused in oil. And oil, because it's so wet and malleable, it makes you want to blend with it. So to actually leave tiles in oil, you have to be incredibly disciplined. And oil helps to cultivate that discipline so that you carry it into your oils, which gives you better color and better control and a lot fresher looking painting. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Do you paint in oil, Robert?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I paint a lot in oil. It's you know, the funny part about this is that once you get shapes and procedures, you know, it's like when in the oil painting. I always get into a lecture on approaches and things, so you just have to learn to live with that around me. You learn which colors are delicate, and it's like when you're painting the sea, painting the seashore and the waves coming in. Paint the waves first. Paint the white of the waves first. Just a little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange mixed in with a lot of white, and just paint the bulk area and then carve all of the blue sea in around it. It works just great. And so you learn to, if you're doing white clouds in the sky, paint the clouds first, and then paint the blue sky around, because the blue is dominant. Blue will kill white any day of the week. And but white, you can use you could use a ice cream bucket full of white, and you couldn't turn a piece of blue anything but blue. Okay. So, but anyway, there's a procedure to all of this stuff, and I think that the gouache you kind of start learning the procedure business, and but oil and painting in watercolor, oil, it doesn't make any difference what you're painting in. Once you get the idea of procedures, what do I paint first? What am I going to paint second? What am I going to paint third? And you know which things you have to be protective about. You say we have trouble getting a light yellow over the top of a green. Once you understand some of these things, then when you make the switch from one medium to another, it's no problem. You know, you got a few weeks of getting used to the idiosyncrasies of the medium itself, but it's not like you all of a sudden don't know how to paint anymore. It's really, once you get one of these down, you can switch over without too much difficulty. And I think that's probably the good part about, because I had never done a digital painting in my life, and I got a tablet, and I'd been doing this stuff all my life, and I was doing them within a day, you know, with no real problems. Whereas going the other way around and going from digital to a line of gouache like this and try to do something, that's a different story. So I think you're better off to start with a hard medium, and then you can go digital, you can go oil, you can go watercolor, you can carve it out of marble if you like. You know, it doesn't make too much difference. Concepts remain the same.
Greg says happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Very good, man. Yeah, Raphael, yeah, I remember saying that to you when you were here studying he said, I remember you saying that blending is a lazy way to turn form. It can be. It's not, I mean, I blend all the time in oil, and I'm not opposed to it. It's just you want to control the way you turn form, and having different options to turn form gives you more variety and allows you, again, if you're looking at people like Feshen, or you're looking at somebody that turns form with broken color or Cornwell or any of these guys, there's many different ways to turn form. It's just a lot of people rely more heavily on blending and just tickling the paint, which actually gives you can give you a bit of a, I don't know, constipated look to the work or something, or uptight. So you kind of want,
favorite word.
Yeah, you want to kind of have options, you know, and utilize those options intelligently based on the situation. Let's see.
Where'd that water go to? Pressure.
Some funny stuff going through there. Jeez.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys, good questions. Try to keep them on point. It's really good. I can see a lot of bantering back and forth, and that's fine. Just keep it chill.
Just stop it.
But no, it's good. It's good. This is supposed to be a lot of fun, so I hope you guys are enjoying. But yeah, we love doing them for you guys. But just kind of keep in mind that that there's so many options, and again, we're not here to really make issues of things like digital or this, that. There's no bad mediums, just bad execution in them. And some mediums will always be your favorites, and those are based on your personality quirks and temperament and all kinds of stuff. So the main thing is just again, always ground yourself in foundational components and charcoal is probably the cheapest, easiest way to do that. And then as you take that knowledge base and move it into gouache and acrylic and watercolor and oil and digital and casing and pastel, I don't care what you use, the common denominators are always going to be good edges, good values, good shapes. So like my dad said, once you got a couple base languages, adding new languages is not that difficult.
Not at all.
So really spend your time on the fundamentals and foundational components, and pick the cheapest medium you can do that in, would be my recommendation. Because you can waste a lot of money trying to learn to draw and paint. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of good stuff, you guys. So keep them coming, and the questions, and just, yeah, good stuff.
Okay, let's see. You can see the loose attention, the way the candle flames were done, instead of doing precision candle flames. You know, to put in some wet and then just, oh sure. Yeah, 'cause, you know, I mean, the one thing that you've got to recognize in something like this demo is that we've got 3 hours to do this in. So, you know, we can't afford the luxury of being precious. Ooh. That's good.
Yeah, so a couple people have asked about varnishing gouaches, and I never do it, but you can use I think, yeah, you may know about this, but I mean, spray fixative, you can spray fix them.
Yeah, you can do that.
And it just changed the
Darkens gouache.
yeah, it darkens everything up. So I've never liked that look as much, although it is hard to get full value in gouache, especially competing with oil and things like that. But and that's one of its downfalls, is it's just not that vibrant of a medium. But I've always loved the look of it. But it's really, I mean, you can experiment. I think you could hit it with a matte varnish or something.
I used Kamar varnish. It was awesome.
Yeah, Kamar varnish I use on my oils most of the time as a temporary rejuvenation of the oil in order to match values that have dried, so that you don't end up having issues with it looking patchy. And you could, and again, you can use that on gouache as well. It's just really up to the
Shouldn't have
individual.
to hurry this fast.
You know, there's so many things you can experiment with it.
Just yet. This looks kind of crummy when it's. It may look crummy all the way through. Who knows? But it tends to look crummy when it's in the process of drying. One of the things that you have to learn about gouache, in my opinion, all these things are in my opinion, so they could be thrown out tomorrow morning, is that with gouache, you put stuff down quickly and get away from it. Leave it alone. It's kind of like a relationship. You know, you have to just kind of, a couple of kind words, go away for a while. You know? And everything works a lot better, you know? I mean, but you just stay there and keep hammering at it, and somebody's going to snap at you before long. And gouache doesn't like to be toyed with. It likes to, you put the stuff down, and it may look crummy for a minute. Just let it settle down and look crummy, and see how it turns out. It might surprise you. A lot of times it looks a lot better once it dries than you thought it was going to be. And you say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and you just keep, and then you start dabbing at it, and then it really goes in the tank. So you put something down, see what happens, relax, don't get excited, just stay calm. And I'm gonna wipe off some fresh real estate here so that I can have a place to mix some halfway decent color. So that's one of the things that once you use up all your real estate, it's a good idea to wipe out.
Yeah, that's a good. Well, somebody just asked, like if you could tell yourself some art advice when you were just starting out, what would it be? And I think that's be patient.
Absolutely, be patient and draw constantly. Constantly. I mean, when you're having coffee, you're drawing. When you just all the time. It's going to drive people nuts, but you've got to do it. And it's and the key is, like I said, those crummy pads you get at Staples. You can get like 12 of them for $5 or something like that. Enough to keep you drawing for months. And just start drawing stuff and get in the habit of doing pseudo perspective. Get a feeling for kind of how, not perfect perspective, just kind of how boxes look in perspective and casting shadows. And just do it until it's like automatic for you. You can do it from any angle, from anything, and just have fun with it. Keep it light and do it constantly. That's the real trick, in my opinion, is that you have to develop a soft feel for sketching, so you're not drawing like you're going to remove somebody's appendix, you know. Like that. Gee whiz. It's got to be light and airy, and relaxed. Get your hand so it'll just kind of flop around out there and have fun, So instead of being all tight, and much of drawing is like figuring out where, within this goes with the brush stroke too. Where am I starting the brush stroke and where is it going to end? So you kind of like say, okay, and that's where it's going to be. So get yourself a little warm up. It's kind of like you're working with a pool cue, and then you finally hit the ball. Just kind of get yourself on some kind of a little groove there, and then do it. And it's the same thing with drawing. It works exactly the same way.
So Jim asked, how many times have you taken a job where the subject matter or lighting condition was something that you've never painted before and had to learn on the job to do it?
Tonight. I mean, this is the fake, but most of the time. I mean, people are, they're art directors. Oh my, I could write books about it. They're from the church of what's happening now, and so whatever you did last week is no longer any good. So they'll throw you some kind of a major curveball. When I first started out in illustration in San Diego, in fact in LA before San Diego, there was. One day you'd be doing an airbrush job, and you never had done an airbrush job in your life, so you went down and bought one. Said, sure, I can do it, and you went down and bought one. And the next day it would be a Norman Rockwell ripoff, and the next day it would be, a woodcut. I said, what? Where did that come from? And it just drive you crazy. And so we referred to it as dial-a style. At that point, because every job you got was just a totally different thing that you'd never done before in your entire life, and a subject matter you hadn't done, with the lighting that you had never done. I mean, everything was different. Yeah, I mean, you've got my iPad is full of just. I'm a ruthless reference hound. I mean, I have stuff on subject matter that you'd never dream that anybody would have reference on, and it makes your life a lot easier, because when you get one of these crazy assignments or some kind of a lighting situation or something that you've never dealt with before, I've got a place where I can go and find pictures of that very thing. Like I've got a whole file on candles and flashlights lighting people's faces in the dark. And what happens with flashlights in the dark? I mean, just all kinds of crazy stuff. But boy, it's really, really useful. But I think you can get used to the fact that you're going to be constantly dealing with stuff that you've never seen before. That's and especially in this particular day and age where concepting is the soup du jour. I mean, that's the one for today. And that's all about making stuff up that they haven't seen before. I mean, if you're going to get any good money at it, that's what you got to do. And I don't know what the real answer to it is, except you've got. I'm always on the computer looking at stuff. I get in trouble for that quite a bit because it seems like it's you obsessive compulsive guy, you know, what is this? You know, I mean, I'll literally be up there for hours on end, but I can show you some files like mystical places. Oh God, I got a great little batch of stuff on that. But it's but one of the things that I was telling everybody in the last class that I was teaching was to study, in particular, film noir, the black and white dark movies of the late 40s. And I mean, the directors of photography and the lighting people in there, I mean, they were really good. They have forgotten more than we'll ever know. And really good stuff. You can learn so much about composition and everything from watching film. But it really helps if you turn the sound off. Then you watch the actual what's going on with the camera. And I mean, it's really instructive. And it's virtually free. But it's really, really helpful. I mean, you've got to find out what, because most people, you know, come to a realization that shadows, you know, you're usually about 34 years old before you realize there are shadows in drawings, you know, in good drawings anyway. Okay, darken this up a bit. It's coming around the corner. I've got a whole hour and 15 minutes to finish this thing up. It's probably not going to be a finished masterpiece. I think that's probably safe to say. But we'll see if we can con you guys into thinking it's better than it is.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if it's Rupam? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but I apologize for butchering that. But you were asking about what he's working on. It's I believe it's 114 Crescent illustration board.
It is.
Which is a watercolor board. It's very thick, very hard to find. Got to special order it. But it's still not very good. Because I had a whole batch of it that's gone bad, just like their 110. So again, if anyone from Crescent out there is listening, you know, you might want to
Pull up your socks.
Yeah, you guys might want to smarten up. But yeah, because I'm not a big fan. Like I said, I used them for years, and I know one of our guys actually wrote them and got a year free supply. But at the same time, I mean, it's not going to help if it's still peeling. So anyway, yeah. So just it's 114, you know.
114 I've had pretty good luck with. It hasn't been too bad. The one, I don't know whether it was 110 or what it was, but it was the rag board. It's not quite as heavy as this stuff. I had really bad luck with that. It's just, I mean, you can't rely on it. You get one sheet that's great, next sheet just sucks. It's terrible. And they really might want to consider going into the toilet paper business. There used to be a brand when I was first working out of school called Wattman board. Oh my God, you couldn't drive a nail through it. The stuff was amazing. It was every bit of a quarter of an inch thick. It was just remarkable stuff. And it was like, you know, it was like, well, I don't know if you can afford to do it on this paper. That's $5 a sheet. Oh, brother. Poster board at CB Pharmacy for $5 a sheet now.
So Jim asked, you know, you said your forte was composition. Can you recommend any books?
I mean, outside of, and with as much absolute adoring respect as I have for Edgar Payne, the book is good. His book on composition is probably the best one around that's commonly available. it's still his drawings they're basically things they refer to as motifs, which is like a circle, an L, a T, an S, radiating lines, grouped masses, balance scale, opposing angles. There's a whole bunch of them. His examples are wonderfully drawn, but they're so complex, and he adores his pen and ink work so much that you can barely see the idiom that he's talking about, the motif that's buried underneath it. And so, it really needed to be done a lot more simply. Because, when people are first starting to learn something, they're not that sophisticated. They're easily confused. And you got to keep the drawings very diagrammatic and very simple. There's another guy, however, though, instead of just leaving you with an empty plate with no answer on it, there was a Theodore Kautsky, a watercolorist. And he's got a thing called Pencil Pictures, Ways with Watercolors, Trees and Landscapes. There's a bunch of them. They're all full of really wonderful stuff on composition and staging dark against light and how to compose your pictures and everything. Because this guy is unadored, you can get his books for next to nothing if you can locate them in a used book situation like on Amazon. So check out Kautsky, Kauts. K-Y, is it K-E-Y?
I don't know, I got all the
But
books, I
Kautsky,
can't
it'll be
remember
close
everything.
enough with Google. I know you can get it. All you gotta do is have a K at the beginning and you'll get it. But I got a little rough spot up here. I got to do a little light watercolor woof over the top of that too. You notice I'm doing diagonal lines in a lot of different directions, kind of scatter technique to put some value into this very forgotten area here in the corner. You can see that it's basically pretty much of a Capricorn color scheme, this thing.
Wide angle.
Yeah, it's all good.
So Robert, the value scale looks pretty, looks pretty limited, not like super full value right now. How much of that is just like the nature of gouache, and how much of that is just you not being finished with the image yet?
About half and half. The gouache is difficult. Where it falls apart is in the darks.
Yeah.
Every time. So all you can do is you can shove the lights a little harder. That's usually the best repair function for it. But much of it's due to the fact that I am simply not done with it.
Okay.
And I hope it'll get better as it goes on. The question is, will I have enough time to do this all the way? Don't know.
What would be a more realistic time for something like this?
A full day.
Full day?
Yeah. I mean, that's to do it comfortably, so you can paint on it for a while, go down, get a cup of coffee, come back, take a fresh look at it. You can be real relaxed, and you can kind of get the thing worked out easy, one piece at a time. There was absolutely nothing like me getting up, walking around the parking lot once, and coming back and looking at it and saying, "Oh my God, look
We
at
tried to
that."
give you a break.
I know, I understand.
No, he's gonna he's changing to
I'm chained to the mast. Okay, just gonna.
Is there a way to layer something underneath the colors or the values you want to be darker before you add those colors, like a black, an Indian black or something, or?
Are you saying put darks in underneath?
Well, I mean before you lay the color on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could. The better choice would be to just paint not a black, but
Gray or something.
just a mixture of dark colors together, but kind of a mottled. Like in here, there's a whole lot of different colors going on, not just one. And that's probably better because otherwise it's going to end up looking like a 50s velvet painting, which is not a look we shoot for normally. Trying to figure out how to deal with this. All right.
Do you want a better place to put your reference, or is that fine?
No,
I can rig something for you.
that's okay. No, it's better if I it's actually better if I don't become obsessed with it.
The reference.
Yeah. Because, you know, if you start, that's the problem with reference, is if you overuse it, you find yourself starting to copy the mistakes as well as the good things. And that's risky.
Abigail just said, can we see your reference again? She might have tuned in a little late or something. So yeah, Abigail, we'll show you real quick again, the reference.
Where's the camera at?
It's a...
Can you see it in the camera?
Yep. Just hold it up for a couple of seconds.
This is an easily available thing. Just dig around a little bit under either Jack Teague or Captain Teague or Pirates of the Caribbean or any of those, and this thing will pop up, and you'll be able to find it. If you feel like you want to throw yourself on broken glass and try this.
Should be good, Robert.
Okay.
Thanks.
I became paralyzed there. What was I doing? I don't really know. Okay. See what's going on down there. I'm just gonna. This is going to be gobbledygook, and then I'm going to come back and start trying to rectify the error of my ways in not having quite enough value contrast here. The thing is that I don't want this to look like a rendering. I want it to look like an illustration. So I'm trying to keep it the indication in this thing kind of loose with just enough tightness to give us some assurance of what we're looking at. Okay, so a little darker than that. Not very. I'd like to get this right-hand side done so I can take the tape off. Tape makes me crazy. I have to put it on there to keep things clean, but I dislike the dirty junk along the edge. That's probably about loose enough for that. I want to be very careful that this area down here doesn't become too important. Let that come in. Well, it's better than horrible, so we're
Quite a few steps up from horrible.
yeah, I've done plenty of horrible. I know that when I see it at a glance. Okay, this is.
Jim Hunt said, Robert, I read you were a Navy combat artist. How did that come about?
I was working in aerospace, and they said that they had a lot of Navy contracts, and the Navy would just love you to come out and paint some pictures for us, you know. And so I said, sure, sounds good to me. And it was really a terrifically neat experience. I did about 3 of them, 3 trips with the Navy, and it was a really excellent warm-up cruise for teaching plein air, because you had to work under bad conditions, and you had to work quickly, and with whatever you could carry on your back, basically. As far as materials and supplies, you had to take everything you could gonna do. But the cool part about it was like a little boy's dream. I mean, you know, you got to do anything you wanted. All you had to do, I could do anything except hang around nuclear weapons. And everything else was fine. Say, you want to go over to that ship, to that island, we'll get you a helicopter. You know, and you've traveled with the rank of captain, and captain of the Navy is no small title. I mean, and for a 30-year-old boy with no class, whatever, this was a dream come true. You know, this was Jake, boy, it was perfect. I loved it. But you got to do all kinds of really dangerous stuff. It was really neat, you know, like go out on the deck when they're launching airplanes. You know, right between two airplanes, you know, like get this thing hunkered down there, and the guy puts his helmet against your helmet and says, this is a quote unquote, said, if anything turns to shit, run and jump over the edge. You can't hear anybody talk out there, so you have to put your helmets together to hear. You know, but it was you get a 110,000 pound airplane that goes from 0 to 180 miles an hour at about 200 feet, right beside you. You know, and it's amazing. I mean, it was really cool. I've never had any experience like that. I did a landing on an aircraft carrier. That was great. That was a neat experience. They do come in awful quick. Okay, start getting a few little doodads in here. Let's start trying to get some.
So I'll answer this one, I guess. I'm going to be selfish and ask another question. Some good friends of mine are extremely talented artists that struggle with what medium they should use, and it cripples their progress. Any advice on choosing a medium? And again, I get Dad. You could take that if you want. I mean, what do you?
Choosing a medium, I gotta say pencil. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, pencil is like if you don't learn how to use pencil, it's like learning how to cook without learning how to boil stuff. You know, I mean, it's just you can't get there from here without drawing. You know, working with this brush is the same thing I do with the pencil, except it's with a brush. And if you can't handle a pencil, you're sure as heck not going to be able to handle this. And so I would seriously say pencil, because it's a very honest medium, very dignified medium, super versatile. I mean, it's really there. You can never say I've run out of good things to do with a pencil. It never happens. It's just an amazing medium. But I guess going from that, the logical step is to start with some kind of a liquid monochrome. So once you get your drawing stuff kind of down, then start working in like sepia or something. You know, so you just get yourself started in one color, something that you can deal with, and then gradually add a second color to it and start working in duotone. And that's the best way.
And that's kind of similar to how we designed the online program, where you basically work through your monochromes.
Absolutely.
You start with burn umber pick out, and then you go to burn umber direct with burn umber and adding white, so you can work directly. Then you go to phthalo blue, black and white, and then you go to Zorn and use 4 colors, and you work your way basically. So the medium's not as much of a problem as it is limiting the medium so that you can get used to it without being overwhelmed by the color aspect of it, which throws everybody off, and everybody blames that when usually it's just their inadequacy in edge and value, shape control, and all those kind of good things. So yeah, just the mediums aren't really. I mean, again, like my dad said, charcoal's my base medium because I love it and it's fast. It's
charcoal,
similar to
pencil.
pencil. I mean, pencil or charcoal or any graphite medium, anything like that would be a great place to start. And then go into either acrylic monochrome. Not acrylic, but I mean gouache monochrome. You could do acrylic, but it's not my top 5. But and that's nothing against that medium. It's just it doesn't work with my temper.
Go ahead, say it.
Yeah, I'm not.
There's something against that medium.
I got a little something against it, but so anyway, just make sure that when
He's
you
out
work
of the closet.
Yeah, when you work in
Out
a
of the
medium,
closet.
you work monochromatically. Meaning, simple. and then work your way into more advanced levels of it. But let's see. I painted. Yeah, this one. Yeah, you know, for the problem when you're talking about like this surface issue that you're having. I mean, you're just going to have to experiment because I can't really answer that one for you. I don't think my dad could either. I mean, you're, you know, if the way you work doesn't go over acrylic gesso, that surprises me because gouache usually does not have a problem thinly going over gesso.
It shouldn't.
But you know, you just have to try until you find something. I don't have a lot. I mean, you know, again, the medium's tailor-made for
See, you can just take, you can put a brush, these light brush strokes in.
proper water to paint
Wipe
ratio.
your finger through it.
So
You can
if
do a
you're
little
having
bit, it
problems
does a
with it,
little bit
you
of
might wanna
pseudo
try to work a
blending.
little
So
thicker with
if
it.
you're having a hard time with blending, that's a good way to deal with that.
Yeah. So again, I think you were asking. She was asking.
Your son does it a lot.
Pardon me?
Your son does it a lot.
Oh, I know he does. No, it's a, you know,
What do I do? What's going on here? What?
Use
Never
use
falls.
your fingers.
never falls far from the tree, eh?
Yeah, I know. I'm a big fan. Yeah, so anyway, sorry about that, Grandma. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one to answer. I think it just has to do with experimenting with different surfaces until you find the one that works for your particular style of using gouache. But be patient. And again, you know, I've used all kinds of different surfaces. And to me, gouache is best used with a proper water to paint ratio so that you can reactivate it. And in thin washes, it will not reactivate. It's not. It's very much like a watercolor when it goes thin like that. So you need to go with a proper water to paint ratio, which takes quite some time to learn before you can actually use it in its sweet spot, which is what makes it so unique, is the ability to actually reactivate it at any time 10 years down the road or whatever. So you know, if you have a tough life and you can't really work in oil because it's drying on you and you can't work straight through on paintings, gouache is a great solution because you can stop it, start it, wait a week, go back to it, and it's always going to be ready to be reactivated and worked in at any time. So it's an awesome, I mean, that's one thing I love most about it, is that it's such a lenient travel medium as well as training medium, because it's very forgiving, unlike most mediums. Once they dry, you're kind of in, you know, it's not going to be very easy to get edges out of it.
And this, I'll bounce around quite a bit on this stuff. I don't stay in one area too awfully long because you, I don't know, it turns you into a weird thing. It's, you start focusing too much on one area and you lose sight of the flow of the whole piece of work that you're putting together. And what you want is a consistency of look across the piece so that it doesn't look like, well, he did the hand real well, but everything else sucks. You know, I mean, you've got to get this thing, bring this thing all kind of up simultaneously. It's really the only way you can, I can make it work anyway. Let's see. Let's do this sideways just to make it easy on myself. Okay. Oops. Probably giving the cameraman fits here. I won't do it again.
So Raphael just asked me specifically a charcoal question. So,
Okay.
Jeff, you've said that charcoal is your base medium. I've been switching my pencils from Pierre Noir 1710B to HB for quick sketch. Why do you prefer B? Is it best to achieve a better range of values? Yeah, I mean, if you have a heavy hand, then go to the HB because you might, you know, it'll just help you, prevent you from going too dark with your line work. But if you have a really tuned hand and your pressure sensitivity is good, you should be able to take a B and use it like an HB or use it like a 3B. So it's just a nice, in the Conte, it's just a nice mid-range. And again, for people that do have heavy hands, I do sometimes suggest the HB. And for people that are ridiculously light and they don't have a serious time with conviction, then I suggest they go to a 3B. So it really depends. I mean, you have to just ask yourself what kind of hand do you have. But ultimately, you know, the Bs are probably the most desirable because they can go either way and they're right in the middle. So, you know, that's what I usually say.
Do you use gouache quite a bit when you do plein air painting?
I have done plein air in gouache a couple of times with fair success. You have to work with, you have to have a very wet paper towel, and you have to work in the shade. You have to keep the because that sun, boy, if it hits that gouache, it'll dry it out quick. It's not an ideal medium. Mostly 99.9% of all of my plein air stuff has been oil outdoors, and I find that that's the best. But you can do gouache. I mean, it can be done. Okay. Let's see, I gotta fix the back of this guy's hand because it's probably not.
Yeah, I don't work. Have you ever worked with pastels? And so, what brands do you recommend? I love pastel. It's just breathing cadmium dust, not my top 5 favorites. So, you know, it's a very specialized medium, and it's very expensive, and it's you can't mix with it, so you have to have thousands of colors. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, the brands there's a lot of good brands out there. It's just it's a very expensive medium, a very boutique medium, in my opinion. It's beautiful, but it's unless you have a part of your studio that's custom made for it, it's really rough. I mean, it's hard to store after you're done with them. It's expensive to work in. You can't mix with it, so you got to have all those colors pre-mixed or have all of them as options. So I love the medium, and I've done some pretty decent stuff in it, but I just don't use it very often because of the again, I just it's just, you can buy vacuums that suck the dust off of the easel, but it's just it's a bear of a medium as far as its practicality. So some people, you know, I mean,
it's blocking the view there, wasn't it?
What's that?
So I bet I was blocking the view.
Oh, but it is good. It's a great medium. I have no issues with it. Just don't use it a ton because of that. For that reason. Do you recommend finishing? Okay. Yeah, Jeff, maybe at the very end we'll take those and
Yeah.
do that at the very end.
Okay.
There's a lot of noise. A lot of noise. Notice I'm not paint covering up everything as I paint this. Trying to get some broken color. Some of the background, those thin washes that are complex and muldy hued, and let them kind of shine through. With gouache, alizarin crimson. I'm not using any black, you note. Or maybe you don't note. But I don't. With alizarin crimson and phthalo green, you can get rid of it. Right here, it looks like brown, and it is brown. but you can get black with the tube, which is very useful.
Can you just keep layering that
Oh yeah, infinitely.
infinitely?
Yeah,
Just
no limit to what you can do with the stuff, really.
It's like with watercolor, the second or third layer starts lifting off the previous layer.
Yeah, watercolor is one of the hardest mediums by far.
No, it is challenging, to be sure. I mean, you have to really plan. A little bit of red and green against each other there. Just a little bit in that. Put a little bit of green back into it here. My color mixing philosophy here is largely uninstructive. Because I don't even understand what I'm doing. I mean, I do know what I'm doing, sort of. But it's, I mean, it's kind of a messy, mixy thing. There was a really great illustrator here in San Diego long ago named Robert Kenyon. I mean, he was good beyond your wildest dreams. And he died very early of colon cancer. So but before he was gone, he did a load of really excellent stuff. And he told me once, he said, it doesn't matter what color anything is if the value's right. It doesn't. You can have a magenta nose on a person. If it's the right value of magenta, it'll look funny. And he was dead right. And he used the craziest colors inside things that were, I wish I had a piece to show you right now. You would be flat amazed. He worked in acrylic. Everything else about him I liked. He made acrylic stand up on its hind legs. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, he did things with it that it shouldn't have been able to do. But he did it anyway. But that there really was a point that was pretty well taken about the using any color you choose. Just pay a lot of attention to your values. So that it quickly, in light of everything we've been saying tonight, it quickly comes down to the fact that what you need is drawing skills, compositional skills, and value skills. You're home once you got that. You can fake your way through the rest of your life. You don't need to be good at anything else, because that stuff will carry the day all by itself. And it's so important, and it's so overlooked. Someone was asking me earlier about what the things that most frequently go wrong with beginner work, and it's definitely scattered piecey elements in the picture that have no relation to each other or to the page on the whole, and as a result, it's like looking at stuff that's been splattered on something. And that's the overall impression that you get. There's no other message beyond that. And so the organization of things on the page is critically important. Be careful that you don't let little spots and pieces occur all over the picture that are not connected in some way to an overall whole. And those basically those compositional motifs give you a wonderful little bone structure on which to hang the rest of your work. And once you become intimately familiar with all the possibilities, and the important thing is that with most of the compositional books you say, well, this is an S picture. Well, it never is just an S picture. Sometimes an S picture with an O influence, with a little bit of T, you know? I mean, it gets really complicated. But the basic essence of all of these things is really very simple. And the rules that, so, I mean, and the stuff, I'm hoping like crazy that the stuff in the video that we put together does a good job of explaining it. I had good reaction from the class, so I know that in person it worked fine.
That was an awesome class you did online. That was really good.
It's got a lot of really good stuff in it. I spent 2 or 3 years putting all the pieces together in that, one piece at a time. You know, there's motifs, which is very important. That's the one we've just been talking about. And there's contrast, like large against small, complicated against simple, straight against curved, vertical against horizontals. You know, the list goes on and on. And once you get done with that, then there's center of interest. You got to nail that down. So you have to, first of all, when you start to do a picture, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's your dog Fred or whether it's painting of the Rock of Gibraltar, it doesn't make any difference. You still have to figure out where the center of interest is and say, that's where I want the eye to go. Everybody else is going to play second fiddle. So you get that done and you get that figured out. And then it comes down to, see, what was the next step in that logical tree?
Was that when you did alphanumerics too?
Oh, alphanumerics is part of motifs. And that means that you can use like the letter 2 or a 3 or 5 as a fundamental structure to hang your composition on. It works really, really well. I mean, I've discovered some really exciting things in that. But anyway, in putting all the pieces together, there's after you get done with that, then there's overlap, and that's the use of overlap, things in front of other things in a picture. And then once you get done with the overlap, then there's shadows. And once you get done with shadows, then there's adding interest, which is making everything that's in the picture more interesting within the limits of not counteracting the center of interest. So, but it's like a crooked telephone pole is infinitely more interesting than a straight one. So, or with a dangling wire from it, or any little thing that you can add to it. So adding interest to all the things that you put in your picture is another. Then comes mood, which is probably the toughest of all of them to insert into your composition. It's a little bit trickier than most, but because it requires that you all of a sudden have imagination, storytelling ability, and all those other things. But amazingly, all of these things, nobody was born with storytelling. Well, I don't think they were. I certainly wasn't. When I first got out of Art Center, I was lousy. I mean, utterly lousy in every way. And it just you gradually work your way out of it. You know, it's kind of like it's learning to see better, like I mentioned earlier. That's really that's the talent thing, and that's the thing that you've got to work on, is really seeing stuff. Amazingly, most people go around and really don't see much. They think they do, but if you get one of the examples in the class was I had everybody, I said, I want everybody to draw a fire hydrant. You've seen what, 5 million fire hydrants in your life? You know, draw one. You know, let's see how much attention you were paying, because the idea in putting a picture together is to be able to, because like everybody wants to be a concept artist. You know, that's the big deal. And in order to be a concept artist, you've got to know something. You know, you got to be able to remember things, imagine things, think of things. You know, all this stuff has to come into play, because you can't say, well, somebody says they need something right away, and you say, well, I got to go out and shoot some photographs of that. No, that ain't gonna work. You know, you got to know most of that stuff. You know, going in, you can get a little reference tonight on the internet, but I mean, you got to be good enough to fake your way through stuff. So you got to get in the habit of really looking at the world around you as you walk by. You know, you have a tendency to just not notice anything. You know, like if I say, take a sidewalk. ordinary sidewalk. Draw me an ordinary sidewalk and add interest to it. Cracks, joints. What does a curb look like normally? You know, have you ever seen one? Well, of course you have, you know. But can you actually draw what contour of a curb looks like? And how far out does the concrete go before it becomes asphalt? You know, and how far does the concrete go over the top towards the grass? I mean, so you don't know any of these things. But I mean, this all sounds really like I'm off center here. But these are the things that you've got to be able to buffalo and fake your way through really fast. So you got to start becoming the world's foremost authority. You know, I mean, you got to know stuff, because that's the stuff that brings life into your paintings. If you've got, it's not the things that people painted that were actually there. It's the things that people added that weren't there that make them really memorable. Otherwise, you know, maybe go to photography school. I'm not downplaying photography school. It's a wonderful thing to do. But I mean, you know, if you prefer not to think about things but just to observe things and capture them, then the camera's a better tool. But if you want to be an illustrator or a painter, you got to learn how to fake things and add things and embellish things. Okay. That's getting mediocre right there. That needs more red in it. Want to darken that little hoop there. This guy's got little noodles and hoops and rings and stuff all over it. Okay, I'll put a little white coating of something over. Be a little more precise about that piece of solid. I take my hat off to you guys willing to sit around and watch something like this. You know, watch a coat of paint dry. You know, that's...
Or riveted.
Yeah, you're riveted, all right, huh? You're stuck is what the truth is. But it's nice to have the company in any case.
I don't know, you didn't, Victor was asking, he used to teach, hey Victor, how you doing? He used to take classes here a while back, and great guy. He was asking if you had saw, I don't think you did, but he said, hi Mr. Watts, thanks for your great demo. What did you think about the Sorority show? But I don't think you went down, did you?
No, I saw the last one, but I mean, I didn't see this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's not to like, huh?
Yeah, that was a pretty good show. Pretty good. Jeez.
Yeah, I wish I had been able to catch it. I have just been snowed in.
Buried.
I just buried.
Yeah, because that show was just ended unfortunately about 26th of August.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal show. About 50, 60 pieces.
Gosh, it would have been a nice field trip.
Yeah, it was a pretty phenomenal show.
Where is it now?
I don't know where it went after that. I don't know if it was on tour or a permanent tour or.
I think it was works scattered across the states.
A lot of it was
Just from
works that I've never
different
seen before. I mean, I saw a retrospective in Spain that was like 3 floors of the product, and it was almost everything you'd ever done. I mean, it was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, it was all the stuff from New York. All the murals were sent out from the Hispanic Society. That was one whole floor, and it was the craziest show I've ever seen probably, and it was by far the best show I've ever seen.
Did you see his museum?
Yeah, and that too. And between
Yeah.
those two was pretty much everything you'd ever done. I mean, this one had a few though that they were on loan that had never been seen before. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, it's just a little obscure plein airs and stuff that were really cool. But it was a phenomenal. I mean, he's just unbelievable. I mean, just ridiculous how good he is. But, yeah, fun to look at. Really good stuff.
Robert, do you freehand your circles and your curves?
Most of the time. Unless it's really critical that they be perfect. Most of the time I fake them. Yeah, it just doesn't really work to use ellipse templates on these things. Own them, but save them for the tech stuff. Even most of the technical stuff, I can do a pretty good fake ellipse. Let it sit. Practice what you preach. Just let it sit for a minute. Come back and fix it. Do something else. Do something else, Bob. I'm gonna keep that kind of light over here so it doesn't get too dark. And we can darken that down a little bit. Hidden anybody's feelings, and we can darken this down. It's not your traditional expected gouache demo, I think. I'm guessing anyway.
What's traditional gouache like?
Oh, it's just kind of all opaque and Jeff does a marvelous job with it. I do it when I have to, but I generally am more interested in a little bit more technique than just literal stuff. Jeff's really good at gouache stuff. Let's see here. A little too dark. A little quick blot with a rag. One dab does a pretty good job of lightening a value if you think you got it a little too dark. Just a little blot. Works really good. Whereas, your first instinct is to freak out, and start scrubbing and dabbing and doing all kinds of things to it, getting yourself in a lot of trouble when a lot of times it's either just leave it alone or do a little quick blot. You can actually get sometimes better effects that way than you can by doing it the hard way.
Hey Robert, you have that blue in the top right.
Yeah.
And I saw you put some slight darker subtle greens into his hair, I think, or something. But predominantly everything else is warm. What was your thought process on putting that over there?
That cool blue?
Yeah.
Something just kind of unexpected to balance the thing out a bit. That's the hope, anyway.
Okay.
It may not work. I don't know. It wasn't actually in the reference, but I've certainly seen a number of things like that work. Get out of the way. I'm going to put some. This is going to be some more complicated greeking up here in the corner to give a little bit more density to this corner, and to kind of infer a little bit more about that furniture that he's sitting in. But I don't want to paint it. I'm really resisting that. Alright, let's see, you find that just almost probably to an annoying degree I bounce around and paint different parts of the picture and then move back to something else a little bit later, and I stand by that because I believe that's what keeps your picture moving, everybody moving forward at the same time. Staying in one little area too long, not only does gouache resist that adamantly. I mean, you keep pecking on it, and like I've said many times tonight, it gets you in trouble if you stay with it. So you are better off moving around and coming back to something in a few moments. Okay, let's get his lip pinked up a little bit, since we've got 1/2 hour left to try to salvage this thing. It's a fairly ambitious, project for someone of my stripe to try this at all. I could have done something like a sailing ship or a barn with trees around it, and I could have knocked that out with conviction and ease and everything, but I decided to try something that wasn't thoroughly expected, even though I'm kind of the resident goofball for tech stuff. I'm the one that they're saddling that job on, and I'm happy with that. That's fine. But I do like to do people once in a while. You don't want to get too stereotyped. Plus, I think people are generally more interested in people pictures than anything else.
And
Seems like it.
There is a nautical theme if you stretch it.
There is a nautical theme if you stretch it. You're right. You're
Next to
absolutely.
you, sailboat.
Yeah. About to be taken over.
And let's see, I said I'm threatening to pink up his lip here, so I'm going to start working on that. I just find that a little, oh my goodness, a little thin wash is a good place to start in modulating your color over in another direction. Then you can easily come back with a more opaque version once you say, yes, that was the right decision. It's a really neat little cop-out way to be a chicken and still work. And at this point, it's really strange at your career. You'd say, you ought to be really confident about how good or ungood you really are at this point. And I, honest to God, don't know. I really don't know. You just have to let other people figure that out on their own, I guess. What's that?
Yeah, it's what I discovered here. I really don't know.
It's true. Yeah. A lot of that. A lot of that. Cut a little bit of that intensity out of that eye, just a touch. Okay, let's see. I'm going to get rid of this as well now, so I can work on the edge for a minute. Got a couple of nasty little flecks down here at the bottom that I always hate it when that happens. I don't know if I can even get them off. More or less, because it's rag finish board, you can scrub and abuse it pretty badly before it comes apart on you. Even though it is Crescent's board, this one seems to be holding up.
Do you ever use black or you never use black?
I'm going to show you what black looks like with the current stuff we have available, you can get pretty bloody black here. Pretty dark. Okay. Just going to try to add a little antique character to the edge of this picture so that we that might be light enough. Light enough. Okay. Let's see, what have we got here? I've got rings all over the place.
Are there any questions coming in, Jeff, or are you good?
Yeah, do I go ahead?
Yeah, come back in. We'll chat a little bit. Let's see.
Anybody had any questions? They had a long wait.
Yep. What about using watercolor pencils?
Well, that's a new one. I've never really tried those. I can't imagine them being superior. I would relegate them to I want something to carry in my suitcase, purse, whatever, you know, for use on the road. Like I've got a little crummy little watercolor tray with a couple of decent brushes in it, and a little medical vial that you can carry water in indefinitely without leaking. That's what I would use those kind of things for. I wouldn't use them for necessarily for serious any serious kind of artwork. They're more of a sketching medium to get a quick record, you know, while you're sitting on the bank of the Seine River, you know, so you have something to work on in a more sophisticated medium later on. And most of those things don't. You know, I mean, there is, like you said, there is no bad medium. You know, you can use a burnt stick out of a fire and a bloody finger probably, and do something reasonably artistic with it if you've got enough ability. But, you know, I mean, there's no sense in saying, you know, well, I'm bored with beautiful color. I thought I'd try working with old faded laundry rags and see if I can stitch those into a painting, you know? You can make life very difficult on yourself with almost no, you know. And that was the one thing, I think there's been some discussion, you know, tonight people calling in or even here in the room with materials. Start out working with the best materials you can possibly buy. Like I used to say in my class, if you want to save money, go home. You know, I mean yeah, but if you want to paint, use good paints, good brushes, good canvas, and wipe the canvas at the end of the day if you didn't come out right. Clean it off, let it dry, paint on it again. But if you happen to accidentally, by any freak of nature, start to get good, you're going to have to relearn to paint with good paints, because the good paints don't mix like your bad paints do. You know, it takes like 1.5 quarts of Winton yellow, you know, to do anything, and with a little drop of Old Holland yellow, a tube of Old Holland yellow lasts you 5 years because it's so powerful. So the thing is, the companies that make paints and materials, they love you buying their cheap junk. That's where they really make the money, because the Winton you use 5 times, even though the tube is, instead of being $20 for a tube, is only $6.95. You use 4 tubes of it to do the same thing that the $20 tube. So now you're actually paying more for the same results. I mean, it's a cruel irony, but it's the truth. And the really good paints, you know, like Winsor Newton orange. Oh, you know, it's just the best. And everything else is like camping out. It's just not good. You want to use the good stuff, because I mean, if you hobble yourself, you know, if you say, well, I can just move too quickly, I'm going to have to cut one of these legs off, because this is going too well, you know. You know, so you want to get the good stuff, you know, and make life easier on yourself, because you're going to need all the help you can get. Even if you're talented as hell, you're going to need all the help you can get. Good stuff. Use good stuff. It actually doesn't cost any more. So but on the other side of the coin, use ruled pads to sketch on. I mean, it's really sensible, because, you know, see, this is those ruled pads. This is where I do my thinking. This is not artwork for publishing. This is where I think things out and put them down, and then I'll clean them up with tracings over the top of it later on. But So there are places when you're going to do a finished painting, use the finest materials. When you're going to do some thinking, use something cheap and think, you know, and do a lot of drawing on that cheap material until you have exhausted all the possibilities and you're clear on where you're headed with your good materials, and then you can start to utilize those. You know, so it's you want to compartmentalize this thing, but you never want to use cheap materials doing what you are hoping will become a finished piece. You know, that's just not smart. This little area back in here is nothing that I would even. Boy, it's wonderful to be on broadcast with an area that you aren't happy with, and I just don't feel like drawing all that furniture tonight. So I don't know what I'm going to actually do. I got to carve around these feathers here. Okay. In areas like this, you've got to be very careful that you don't start generating an amazing contrast that's up in the corner and away from this. That's like the center of interest. Boom, right there. That's the center squares of the chest border right there. And so if you can let things start to get you away from that, you've got a potential problem. Now watch it. That's why this furniture here really doesn't want to be, it wants to be better than what I've done, but it doesn't want to be all that interesting. Let's see if I can coax, find a pony underneath this pile of horse poop. That's not the right color. Too dark. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so everybody watching out there, at the end, we'll go ahead and take some time to show some other examples of some work. So if you want to hang out for a few minutes afterwards, we'll we'll do that before we cut out. But thanks again for joining in. You guys have been some really great questions, and really appreciate you tuning in.
Okay. Start getting darker up there. This is one of those where you just have to sit down and start designing the abstraction of this area so that it's not so interesting that you really want to look at it, but still that the shapes are nice, and that takes a little bit more effort than I put into it originally. It's hard to get us. Hard to get a stroke on this that does what you want from this angle. You know, you typically flip the thing around to get so that you're working from the right direction.
Yeah, Anthony, at this point, there may be in the future, we'll probably have a scholarship type competition or something coming up in the next year or so.
Wow,
We're getting
that's
ready to
exciting.
start a whole new structure to the online school with a bunch of really great new things coming. So they're going to be called guilds, and it's going to be a whole different structure than it is right now, which will add a lot of really neat, compelling aspects to it. So look forward to that in the next month or so. But yeah, we tried to make it as reasonable as possible considering what's been put into it and the content. There's I think over 600 hours right now, or 500 hours, and probably over, I don't know, almost 1,500 pages of workbooks, or maybe more than that. So it's pretty robust, and it's probably going to be about 2,500 hours when it's done, or so, 2,000. So yeah, a lot of content. It would take you many, many, many years to get through that. So anyway, yeah, I don't know yet about that, but we may do something. We're doing something in that vein. We just haven't quite figured it out yet. Let me see. Oh,
Start giving out.
you're a wizard. That's what Jordan says. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Well, as you guys hind end feel about as fatigued as mine,
We should.
sitting on a plank this whole time. Reminds me of Little League games. Let's see. This picture is probably best viewed from about 8 feet away. No, I actually think it's just fine for what it is. I mean, they're demos.
They're just your payment tunnel.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not finished work. They're trying to find out how much can you do with how little. A little more red. You have a tendency to track little bits of these sticky whites around on your picture. So.
Good job over there, Tim.
It's getting intense.
I know that's not.
Jumping around.
Yeah, that's not a fancy little rig there.
I don't know what this color here was for. What did I do that for? Different color.
Yeah, I think Abigail said, would you use this same process for a final piece that takes a lot more time? Thanks for your awesome.
Absolutely. Yes. And I've actually been paid for those before.
Okay.
Just trying to add a little bit of character to the edge here, like I said earlier. Surprisingly easy to do.
Just make sure you don't wreck it now.
No, I won't wreck it. You know, it's past the point of being a disaster. You know, so we're safely out of the disaster bog. You know, it's no, I mean it's you know, all things considered that I was little in-depth planning as was done for this. I mean, the only way I could be more prepared would be to paint the whole thing twice. You know, do it once at home and then do it again here. And then, of course, the second time, it's going to be like eating the same meal twice. You can pretty much visualize how that would work. Not well. Okay. It's about 4 minutes to run for the door time. Yeah, actually, flame red works pretty good. It's their inexpensive bright red gouaches. It's very reasonably priced, and it works really quite well, especially when you combine it with cadmium orange, which is the high price spread. I mean, they make a cadmium red medium and light, but you don't really need them. I don't use that many really super bright reds. And I mean, it's really bright red to put it on.
Someone says, are there any other courses that Robert will be doing for the online school in the future? Because I love my Robertisms.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Yeah, there will be more. There's going to be dirtbag perspective. That's one with really. I mean, that's really that probably will be the name of it. Just from the standpoint that it's perspective. Where perspective really works and how to make it work quick. You know, without great big long, 86, protractors and compasses and all kinds of nonsense that you normally attach to that. But how do I work with perspective in a real quick way? What are some quick cheap tricks that you can do with it that aren't
yeah, Eric will be doing the mechanical one.
Yeah, I mean, you need to know that. It's not to
Which is awesome because he's 30 years doing it. It's just crazy what he came up with. I mean, it's stuff you don't learn in books. I've never learned. But Eric will be doing the book stuff, which is really, here's 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. Here's how you do this, do that, which you need to know a little bit. And then he'll come in and say, okay, now here's how you do it. Cut corners and do it fun. It's easy. But you want to do both because the one will prepare you for, because he's been doing it for so long, and he did that in the beginning. But Eric's really good at that, incredibly good, and has a really great mind for that, and he makes it entertaining. But there's only so entertaining you can make that.
Oh,
But then
it's
he
just
does some
the
really
worst.
great stuff. That's just
Perspective is like dental college. It's just awful. Oh
I'm
man,
always trying to be diplomatic, and he's like, this sucks. It's terrible.
it is bad, but you gotta know it.
That's true.
That's the sad part about it. It's just, I mean, it's like, if you want somebody to give you, the wrong change back, don't do math, I mean, it's your choice. But, you really do have to know perspective. And I've read everybody's book on the subject, and I'm pretty good at perspective. I don't claim to be the wizard of time and space on perspective, but I'm pretty good at it. And perspective is basically very, very simple. What gets complicated is the models that you try to draw. And they have so many pieces. and all the lines start crossing over each other and getting complicated. And you say, which line did that one belong to? What is that? I can't remember what I did. Where is that line? I can't see it anymore. You know, that's where the real problems come in. And that's one of the places also where working with several layers of tracing paper on a project, so that you do one part of it on one, do another part on the next one. That's part of dirtbag perspective. And so you just deal with one part of it at a time, and then you've got 15 layers of tissue paper, and over the top of those you draw the final thing using each of the results on each one of those levels, and that works pretty darn good. It's a nice way to simplify the thing. Colored pencils is another way. That's good. All kinds of little cheap tricks, but there are some more fundamental ones than that as well that we're going to be dealing with. And there'll be an environmental concept class at some point. Not sure how far away that's going to be. It depends on whether they keep sliding sled loads of work at me. That's really getting in the way of my good times.
My husband's been watching and he's quite impressed.
That's cool. Is he an artist as well, or is he
No. No, he's my...
Just likes pirates.
Yeah. He's my framer, that's what he says.
That's cool.
Oh, goodness. Alrighty. Well, this is where you'd get in now with little tiny brush strokes and start really designing all of these little areas and putting, like, there's little things like right at the edge of a light zone. You can put a little stripe of almost pure orange right where it goes into shadow, and it'll light up that area quite nicely. You have to, should get my better brush to do this, but put a little outline of yellow and orange.
We all paint on the same painting for 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody brings their spouses and stuff, and that way they can kind of see, because a lot of people just don't ever see a painting doing that. They have no idea what is spending so much time doing, you know.
Yeah.
So when they come in, so everyone can enjoy the party. We kind of have a round robin painting thing, and it's fun.
Cool.
So
It is a neat thing.
Yeah, everyone will take a 20-minute whack at it, and it's so fun to watch everybody, paint on the same painting. It's really cool. Yeah, it's pretty neat. A lot of times the spouses that aren't painters are like, man, that's really cool. Once they see it actually done, and it makes sense, and it's logical, and it's not all, they go, oh, that is very logical,
Yeah.
It's really neat.
I'm going to see if... put a little bit of that
So I apologize that you guys are going to have to watch another demo in the morning. Because I'll be demoing, but it's hard. I mean, you want to kind of expose people as much as possible with the stuff you guys want. We'll be doing when you get home. But it'll be a fun day. And then Saturday you'll be drawing all day. That's a full day.
Tomorrow, Saturday.
Tomorrow.
No, it's tomorrow, Sunday. Sunday you'll be doing the whole week just blurs. You'll be doing full day, so that'll be a pretty long day. It'll actually be maybe a 9-hour if you end up coming in. Well, you can paint in the evening, so you can do 9 hours, 6 hours of drawing and 3 hours of painting. That'll be a big day. So people, it'll make up for it on that day. Yeah, thanks Dad for coming in on your birthday. That's pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah.
So for anyone in perspective, or the one class, it's Stump the Wizard. So we'll be in a class and someone will throw in some problem to have to draw up freehand. And like, can you do a aerial view of a hospital? Or something, something crazy. I mean, last time it was a Russian sub interior. And you invent a Russian sub interior, and he starts pulling it all out, extrapolating, and then one guy's on the line going, "That's really close." He's like, "Look up." So he's like, "Damn!" It was so funny watching him do it. But I think Chris, this one guy, Chris, always called it Stump the Wizard. So he always throw, when he was taking classes, he would always throw something.
I'll get an opportunity to get even with him.
Yeah, it was so funny. It's fun. It was pretty cool to watch it because he'll work through all these problems and he'll show you like kind of how to invent that perspective issue and how to just formulate that, come out of nothing.
There are some quick ways. There's a magic 1-point method
Such a
that
cool method.
really works well.
Is
I mean,
that-
it'll just scare you how quick you can get a scene together. Because what all this stuff is really designed for is not that, no, this is not the Time magazine cover you were going to be working on, you know, but this is, you know, when you first get if you're going to become an illustrator, which most of you probably won't, but I mean, you'll probably do something else, but for those of you who do, you have to be able to analyze and put together the possibilities for a scene very quickly without a lot of labored vanishing points and stuff, you know, that just take hours and hours to put together. You know, you have to figure out, say, would it look better from the left, from the right, from the bottom, up, down, low, up, high? You know, where should I be? The example that I used in the class was a subway platform. Yeah, and it was so that you're looking into this subway thing from all kinds of different places in it, and all those different places, all you do is draw a cross section of the end of the tunnel. Almost anybody can do it. You know, I mean, it's really easy. You know, it's.
There he goes.
No, I have to show you this. Really quick.
That's my fault. I'm sorry I brought that up.
No, if it's like, this is the landing, this is down here, track, wall. This is the roof, so if you had little people standing here, they would look like that. Okay? And a little domed area here, and this is where the subway train comes in, right? Okay, now by putting a vanishing point anywhere in this thing, I can get a completely different result. So if I go right up here, I get a line coming this way, a line coming this way, this way, this way, off of this corner, that way, that way. Okay? So if you follow this subway train out, its shape out, I end up with a shape that's approximately down here in that hole. So you connect the two, and you get, and so you're just that quick, just drawing a section, a dot, and connecting the lines out in every direction. And you know, a 4-year-old can do this. I mean, a monkey with a stalk of bananas can do this. You know, it's not hard. And so by moving the vanishing point, if I move it down here, then everything shoots up, and now I'm down at track level. It's amazing the difference. It really does work.
Chris Bradley says, "Don't blame me for this one, Jeff." That's Chris. Chris is the one that always gives me those questions.
Can we see your other work?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. I'm gonna show you some of just a few pieces my dad brought in. He's got hundreds of thousands of these things, but he brought a few in just to show the students. Right now, we actually have a boot camp going on, and so we have all the people from the boot camp here watching the demo tonight, which is a little cool and unusual, but really was really a lot of fun. So thanks again, you guys, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for being here, people.
We'll be doing more of this in the future, but you know, we never know. I don't know what the next one will be. Usually we just rotate through some of the guys. We're going to try to get everyone on a routine where all the teachers will be doing it, but we'll be doing some other things. So just keep watching, keep tuning in. But anyway, now we'll show some of those. Are you gonna?
That's fantastic.
Are you doing it from there, or are you gonna?
No. You can show
Okay.
these things if you
Well,
choose. Do you want me to get out?
Yeah, that might get it, 'cause then
Get
we
my shenanigan out of the way.
So I'll just. You want me to just hold them up here, Jeff, for a second?
Yeah.
Then you just kind of pan around them or zoom in or
Yeah,
something.
it's hard to slide out. It's hard to move after this. These are, let's see, this.
Are these all on present board?
Yeah.
All of them?
And he's got tons and tons of these. These are usually comps for
This
his
is-
large oil
this is-
paintings. So this is your
is
comprehensive. That's how I do all now. I use gouache primarily just to comp out all my ideas for my big oil paintings. So it's my comping medium. But it's a fast medium.
These are
Yeah.
just tech
Yeah.
things.
Gouache is a beautiful medium. It really is my second favorite to oil.
Whole gang of
It's
range
really-
from
yeah,
very
it's a cool
tight
nocturne.
to fairly loose. That was during the Viet. That was during the.
He's got some pieces in the
Navy
Smithsonian,
combat,
you know, and I mean,
And
he
that
used to
was
do a
during
lot.
the Navy
He's
combat
when he was part of the Society of Aviation Artists. A lot of some
This is
phenomenal
some
painters are
concept
part of
stuff I
that.
was doing for a game.
Yeah, he was always doing stuff for them, and it's really cool.
But,
Anyway, I'll
that's
get out
just
of that.
this is an invention
Airplanes are
for
airplanes, you know.
in the last class we
Oh,
took,
ton
we
of-
were doing
these
tech
are-
drawing.
Oh, these are the digital
Drawing
things.
technical
I'll
things,
show you
boats, trains, planes, spaceships.
That was just a.
You know, that perspective he was just showing you.
Digital
he would
painting from a
show, you know, it's
landscape.
such a cool
The first
technique,
thing I
but
did
we'd go through all that kind of stuff,
second.
and then he would just demo, like somebody asked him to do a robot
It was
one
like
night.
third,
He
I
just
think.
quickly demoed a little how to construct one.
So
Yeah,
they're,
it's-
they're pretty, you know, just.
and this was a demo
and I
for
I've
one of the
only
gouache
done about
illustration
10 of
classes,
them, so
where he,
those are
yeah,
different.
just showing like how
That
to
was
do
a
water
pretty
and
good
how to
painting,
do,
too, yeah.
you know, all that stuff. So it was really quite a cool little piece.
This
We
one
get
was
probably
done
about 2.5
that was
hour,
when I
maybe
worked in
3 hour.
aerospace at the very beginning. That was
And he
we were
does some
doing
finished
stealth
gouaches that are
planes
just
back then.
crazy good. But these are mostly conceptual comps or gouaches, so they're fast and
Yeah, let's see.
you know. But
I'll-
the
I'll
illusion, you
show
can
it.
see. I mean, even
Oh,
the,
there's just all
the
kinds
it's
of
you know,
junk in here.
you don't need the detail really. I mean, you could put it
This
in,
is-
but it probably wouldn't make the piece all that much.
Some of both, mostly
Is that you guys? Is that
scan.
enough? Is that good?
These
Good.
are,
This other one. Oh,
these are character things that I.
over here. Here we go.
Yeah, no,
That's a cool one. That was also a demo for one of the classes, concept
Just-
classes or something. I don't
These
know.
are all just total inventions, and most of them done on yellow.
No, this one's
yellow
actually a
pad.
mining on an asteroid. It's,
Yeah.
it was, you know, futuristic kind of thing. With
These
he
are
was
just
reading,
like
he was
little
he reads a lot of
sketchy
sci-fi
sketches.
stuff. He
This
loves
is the
it.
quickie stuff.
He was reading some story
That's
about
talking about.
these guys that were mining asteroids or something, and I think it's just food for thought. And then he kind of created a piece out of it, just playing around. He's quite an idea generation guy. But didn't you early on get an opportunity to work with Disney Imagineering or something? Weren't you going to work for them?
Yeah, I was. That was
Back in the
way
day.
back.
Which is the same
Way
thing,
back.
you know,
These
concepting.
are all this little
That was just a little
crazy stuff.
Yeah, a little quick. I think that was for some quick thing for
That
a class
was
that we were in.
invented. That was we had in a class assignment too. The bridge at Sleepy Hollow was the thing. So I wanted your eye to go to the bridge. The best part of the whole picture was actually
Cool.
Ichabod beating the
Okay.
crap out of his horse trying to get.
Okay,
away.
everybody. So that's it for tonight, you guys online. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Serpents, various dragon sorts.
Are most of those drawings done on newspaper?
Most of them are done on that lined pad, and then I throw a piece of tracing paper over the top and do a clean drawing from